welcome to yet another Geek Show, where our punchlines are always fun and catchy. I'm your host, Alex Ecker.
I'm your host, Dalton Munnell.
I'm your host, Josh Keir. That might have been the funniest punchline yet.
Thank you.
Absolutely nailed it.
I give my heart
I'm
and soul.
glad I was here to witness it.
So what have you guys been up to this week?
Well, Alex, I think you know what I've been up to lately.
Oh, yeah, but...
I think you know.
Well, you finally got...
For the first time in the last 5-6 years, I've become a console peasant again. With my wonderful, wonderful Switch.
I thought I smelled dirt on you.
I am feeling rather filthy lately, yes.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, let's maybe not start with that one, though, because I have a feeling we'll talk about that one for a while.
Oh, I see. You have a big deal?
Well, I guess there's just a lot of things to talk about there, like why I've been avoiding consoles, why I gave in and bought this one, why I'm happy with it, why I'm not happy with it. Yeah, so that being the case, all my gaming's been on the Switch for the last week, and I'm not really ready to talk about those games because I'm in the middle of a few of them and don't like to talk about them until I consider myself done, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Can we get some hints as to what's in progress?
Oh, well, I'll just tell you. I started with Super Mario Odyssey, and I've completed the story, but man, there is so much post-game content there.
Yeah, I still haven't finished all the post-game stuff in that game.
I really don't know how much of it I'm going to finish. Like, I feel like I'm not done with it, but I don't know if I'm gonna get 1,000 moons. Anyway, so there was that, and the port of New Super Mario Brothers U, and obviously, of course, Smash Bros.
Of course.
Which, honestly, there's never going to be a point at which I consider that one done.
I mean, once you get all the characters, I think that's a fair thing to say is done. Or, well, actually, in this one, it's different because it's a story mode, right?
Well, there's been story modes since, I would say Brawl, but even Melee had the adventure mode.
4 didn't really have anything like that, but...
No, it didn't.
This is definitely the most fleshed out single-player mode since Brawl.
Yes.
Absolutely. In any case, I'm going to be with that one and for a long time, and we'll eventually do a spotlight on it. So maybe I'll throw out the only game I'd consider myself done with and see if you guys happened to look at it, which would be Tetris 99.
Oh, God.
I did not play that one.
Oh, okay. Well,
I mean...
Figured it was worth a shot. It's free.
Oh, it's free?
Well, it being an all-online game, it's free if you're paying for the online.
Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah, that being the case, I'm done with it. Because I'm not going to pay for the online. I took the free trial, and I'm good. I don't really need it. But also because I don't really like the idea. It's not working for me. I mean...
So what made this Tetris different from... Tetris.
It's Tetris Battle Royale.
You're shitting me.
Oh my God, dude, we have to
I'm
get
not
this game.
shitting you. That's exactly what it is. It sounds like it's an interesting idea, but here's the thing is when you're playing it, you can see the game of the other 98 players. You can see what everyone is doing. You can see their whole play space, and you have, with your right joystick, you kind of strategically pick who you're going to target, not a specific user, but you can say, oh, put my target on someone who's about to die, put my target on someone who's been attacking really aggressively, things like that. But for me, the idea is not really working because it just feels like I'm playing Tetris by myself, and occasionally a bunch of shit pops up and ruins my game. It feels completely luck-based because it's all about whether someone happens to choose to target you.
I see. Okay.
I mean, I could be doing pretty well and holding my own, and then all of a sudden, 12 lines of shit pop up from the bottom because 2 or 3 people targeted me, and now my game's ruined, and I don't necessarily have the skill to fix that, and I don't think most people do. I don't think most people are particularly skilled at Tetris. So it ended up being luck of the draw. Sometimes I would die in, 95th place. Sometimes I'd die in 30th place, and it's just, maybe I don't get it. Maybe it only works the way it's intended if you're really good at Tetris, but it just wasn't working for me. It just feels like luck.
I'm
Kinda
personally
sounds like
just
it.
amazed that there was a 95th place for you to be at. That means that
Oh yeah, and games start quick. If you
Yeah.
download it right now and tell it to put you in a match, you'll be in not in a lobby, you'll start a brand new match in 5 seconds.
I'm wondering if the fact that it's a free game is what keeps people playing it. Like, no offense to Tetris, but it's kind of a dated game at this point, you know?
And I mean, I still enjoy Tetris. I mean, it's a formula that works,
Oh,
but this
absolutely.
is just, this is Tetris, except sometimes we randomly shit on you.
So Tetris.
Well, I mean, regular Tetris shits on you in the form of not giving you the pieces you're hoping for. But with this, I mean, oh, you're doing great. And then we shit on you by throwing 12, 16, 20 blocks up on your screen for
Yeah.
seemingly no reason.
We'll still never give you a
enough,
fucking line.
Yeah.
Right. Geez. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Josh, what have you played?
Didn't play much this week. I actually watched a lot of stuff this week. So
Oh.
I finished up.
Oh, this is exciting.
Was that?
Josh, I don't think you've watched a movie since we've started.
You know what? This might be true. Well, I watched 2 movies this week.
Whoa.
But it doesn't really count because they were kind of about the same thing. I'll start off with saying that I finished season 3 of The Good Place today, which now has me caught up to everything that's currently airing, and now I gotta wait till season 4 comes out. You guys familiar with that show at all?
You've been telling me to watch this.
I've been telling everybody I know to watch this show. I love it.
I'm actually not familiar at all with this show.
All right, so I'll give you the premise of, I guess, the first episode, and you'll probably be able to tell pretty early on whether or not this is a show for you. It's a comedy. I think it's on NBC. First 2 seasons are on Netflix, and I've been watching season 3 on Hulu as it airs. But anyway, so first episode, a woman wakes up in an office, and she sat down in front of a desk. This guy's sitting across the desk from her, and he lets her know that she is dead and in the afterlife. And
Okay.
while not following exactly the exact tenets of any existing religion on Earth, the afterlife in this show is divided into a good place and a bad place. So like you're like heaven or hell. And this girl's been informed.
I've never heard this one before.
This girl's been informed that she is in the good place.
Okay.
Episode 1 spoilers. She figures out really early that she's not supposed to be there at all, and has
Oh.
taken the place of somebody else with her name that was actually a good person because she's a dirtbag from Arizona.
Okay.
You know, as great as that sounds, I was hoping you were going to say it turns out she's not in the good place, because now I'm just imagining like the perfect terrible version of hell would be to convince you that you're in the good place for like a few centuries and just let shit slowly get worse for you. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I'm bathing in lava. When did that start happening?
Just have like little glitches of shit happen here and there. Like you're just like on this
Yeah.
beautiful sandy beach, and then like a demon just like blips in for a second and disappears, and you're like, what was that?
Yeah, you're like, oh, that was
Another-
weird.
Another 5 years go by, you're swimming in like a hot tub. Next thing you know, the water turns to blood. You're like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, but it has to happen very slowly over centuries.
Yeah, you know, like the frogs in boiling water allegory.
Yes,
You don't even
exactly.
realize that you're in hell until it's too late. Well, I don't want to give away too much about this show because it is probably the most story-focused comedy I've ever seen, which is not really something that that I've seen a lot of. You know, there are shows like, I don't know, I want to say like Arrested Development, where the continuity is like, understanding the continuity is very important to understanding the humor of the show.
right.
It's serialized.
Sure, yeah. So if shows like that are your bag, then you're gonna love The Good Place. The show's written by Michael Schur, who's the same guy that wrote Parks and Recreation and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
if you like those shows as well, you're gonna get a lot of the same style of humor.
Huh, well, I'm sold.
First 2 seasons are on Netflix. Neither of them are very long. I remember when I discovered this show, season 1 had just been released on Netflix, and a friend of mine had told me, oh yeah, I was watching this show and it was pretty funny, and I was bored, so I figured I'd check it out, and I watched the entire show in one sitting and realized that it was 4 a.m.
Oh shit! Wow. Yeah.
Highly recommend this one, and I can let you know, at least as far as up until the end of season 3, it just keeps getting better.
Well, that was my question, was whether season 3 is holding up. So, yeah. All right. And you had another
so
show
I did
or
watch
movie?
some movies this week. I watched both of the documentaries on Fire Festival.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Okay. We talked about this off air after I watched it.
Yes. So I finally watched them myself.
Mhm.
Wow, was that a satisfying story of possibly the biggest dumpster fire of all time. I just can't even believe. I sat there with my jaw open almost the entire time. Just like the
It's one of those things where you could read the description for it and just assume you're not looking at a documentary.
right? I thought it was you could write out the story of what happened word for word, and I would assume it's an episode of Always Sunny. Like the gang throws a music festival.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have anything to say about like the comparisons between the two documentaries, where they stand against each other?
It's kind of interesting because the Netflix documentary, from what I understand, was produced either by or in very large part in tandem with the people from Jerry Media, who were in charge of promoting the festival when they were still putting it together. And a lot of people have raised the question of how complicit are they in pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. Obviously, they're an
Right.
advertising company, so to some extent you're at the whims of your client. But even in the Netflix doc, it shows pretty early on that there were people that had inklings of this is not legit. They went along with it anyway. I thought the Netflix doc was a lot more sympathetic towards the guys at Jerry, whereas the Hulu doc was not. Probably because the Hulu doc had the guy that was on Jerry and had the account, and then they threw him under the bus, so he quit and started his own company.
Yeah, and now that Hulu one had its own controversy too.
Well, yeah, because I think they gave a paid interview to Billy.
Yeah,
they paid him,
so
right? I don't know
they're-
how much they paid him.
Yeah, well, and I don't know. That's a complicated one for me because I get the upset. You're making this documentary to prove to us this person did a horrible thing and then giving him money. But like at the same time, that interview was a lot of value for the documentary. I mean, it added, and not in terms of like revenue they'll make off it. I mean, in substance.
Oh yeah,
for the documentary.
without a doubt. Just being able
It got a lot out of that.
Being able to see him try to rationalize the decisions he made. And I loved the way every time he answered one of their questions, they just let the shot linger on him for like 30 seconds as he stares blankly off camera.
Oh yeah, and you'd normally edit out that silence. You'd edit it so that like the interviewer's voice comes a little bit later, so it looks like they're responding a little quicker. And no, there's shots in there that are a good 10 seconds long of him just looking at the floor thinking.
Yep, he's just staring lifelessly off screen. And wow, I can't, like, every time they did that, it impressed me every time. I really don't know if I can favor one of the documentaries over the other. I watched the Netflix one first, and what I liked about that one was that it gave you a little bit more meat in terms of what actually happened during the festival, and you got more from some of the attendees. Whereas the Hulu doc was more of a case study on Billy McFarland in a lot of ways. I think watching them both, they complement each other because you get different sides of the story. And quite honestly, I'm so invested right now. If there were 10 other documentaries on this out at the moment, I would watch them all back to back.
Yeah, and so me having watched both of them as well, if someone asked me, if someone said I only have time to watch one of these, it would be a hard question because the Hulu one, I find the more intense focus on Billy to be captivating, but the Hulu one's also a lot less professionally done.
Right.
It has a lot of dumb, like Family Guy style cutaway gags for no reason.
Right. There were a
Just-
few times during the doc where they cut away to like segments from Parks and Rec or something like that, which was a little bit jarring to say the least.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, these real people did something that was silly as businessmen. Let's cut to a scene from a show where people are being silly businessmen.
I would probably say watch the Netflix doc if you haven't seen any and you don't know a whole lot about Fire Festival going in, because I felt like that did a much better job of telling the story of how hard they sold this festival and how disappointing it ended up being. And then if you're really interested, you can watch the Hulu doc and get some more behind the scenes, like here's how screwed up the guy that put this together was.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that. Alex, what have you played?
Well, kind of did the Josh route this week. It was a little bit of gaming here and there, but nothing like substantial. But I did start watching Preacher on Hulu.
Okay.
I'm sure.
How far are you?
About the season, like I want to say probably like midway through season 2. The show took a huge turnaround after the first season. I'll definitely say that. Quite frankly, like I was already a big fan of like Supernatural, which I'm still waiting to watch season 14 of. And yes, I've watched every season of that. I'm a huge nerd for the show. But for those of you who don't know, Preacher, I thought was going to be one of these, oh, I kill demons because I'm a man of God kind of things. It actually wasn't like that at all. You start off with this, well, preacher, but he's not exactly a good man. It's kind of one of those shows where they'll start off with making you think, and then they'll answer it later on. But I was expecting something like Hellsing and Supernatural kind of mixed together, where it's completely not exact like that. It's more about a dude with who lives in Texas, and he's got this southern drawl, and there's a lot of,
you just have to get rid of the expectation that
Mm-hmm.
being a religious man makes the character a good person.
Yes.
And it's not a commentary on religion. It's not like, ooh, look at this. Aren't preachers actually the evil ones? It's not like that. It's more that in this world, this religion happens to be factually real, and not being a great person doesn't inherently mean you won't believe in it.
Right.
Maybe it's a bit more backwards that.
It kind of destroys that. What is that? A trope of religion where you have to be this holier than thou attitude, and it really kind of like breaks the rhythm of what other shows have kind of put a stipulation on in religions. It's really neat.
Yeah. So anyway, the major point of this show, the draw, the unique thing is this power of his.
Yeah.
So go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah. I can't remember if it's in the first episode that they really introduced that he gets this power, but he gets what he thinks is the voice of God, who can command people to do what he wants them to do. It's really cool to kind of see him struggle with it, where he'll do things on accident and not mean them, and one of those things actually ends up driving the show forward. But if he says, hey, don't move, they literally will not move until he tells them to move again. Or there was a particular moment in the show where he tells someone to stay away from him, and then it's episodes and episodes later that he finally realizes, oh, hey, I said that to them. I have to go over there and tell them to, hang around me again. It's really kind of funny. The one thing I really like about it is, even though the show's kind of dark and twisted, they have some pretty comical moments about it. And I think that's because it has a comic book nature. Like, it's actually derived from a comic book series of the same name.
I was just going to ask, are you aware that it's based on a comic?
Yeah. My wife introduced me to the show, and when I started watching it, I'm like, this feels like it should be a comic. And she's like, oh, it is. So she started reading the comic, I think. I haven't gotten that far yet. I've been kind of wanting to catch up on what's publicly out there first before I'm really invested in a comic book series, because I've got a couple of those going on right now too. But yeah, definitely check it out. It's on Hulu, and I believe the first 2 seasons are available. I don't know about the third one yet. I also restarted. Funny that you mentioned Brooklyn Nine-Nine earlier, Josh, because I restarted.
Well, wait. Before you move on, I just wanted to throw and mention I've read quite a bit of that comic too. I read maybe 5 or 6 story arcs of it before the show came out, just because I just knew it had a really good reputation. And this is always a bit controversial to say, but I think the show is a lot better than the comic.
Huh.
Yeah, although my reasoning here isn't really about the story or the characters or anything. Honestly, I just don't like the art in the comics.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a unique, distinct style. It's an artist who, his name is slipping me, but he's an artist you always recognize when you see him. Like, I've seen him do some Marvel comics and I always go, oh, it's that guy. But it's not, I don't know, it's just not easy on the eyes, I'll put it that way. So the adaptation to TV, everything else aside, interpretations of the characters, dialogue, whatever, ends up working better for me just on a visual standpoint.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Does it, because of the art style though, does it ever get stale to read as a story narrative versus the art narrative?
No, I wouldn't say art could ever make the comic book story less interesting. It's just that it was enough of a sore on my eyes that it couldn't maintain my interest in seeing the rest of the story until I had this other medium to see it in.
Yeah. To tell you the truth, I don't like, I think I kind of spoiled myself watching the show first versus going to the comic, because Cassidy, I don't think that anybody could portray the role better than the actor that they have doing it. He seems like he's a really good relief between the main characters. But I'm getting the feeling that he's probably going to have some pivotal points in the show.
Yeah. Well, and to my recollection, he's pretty spot on for the comic.
Oh, awesome.
It's been a long time since I've seen that comic, but to the best of my memory.
Yeah.
All right, you had another thing.
Yeah. I started rewatching Brooklyn Nine-Nine because what was it? A couple years ago, they were talking about canceling the show entirely.
Yeah.
Well, officially it did.
Yeah. But it's still going on.
Yeah, it was beyond talking about it. It did get canceled and then rescued, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, because once it got canceled, I was like, oh, well, there's no need for me to, keep watching currently, So I kind of stopped, and I hadn't watched it in a couple of years, and I was a few seasons in. I think I was maybe season 3 or 4, maybe. I can't remember how many seasons it was before it kind of got canceled. So I stopped watching it, and at least the first season, there's a lot of gold comedically in there that I kind of regret not continuing the show until its cancellation point, quote unquote. Because if I'd have known that it would have been saved, before I stopped watching it, I would have definitely have loved to keep watching it whatever its scheduled time was or whenever it came out on Hulu, because it's honestly one of the funniest shows. I'm genuinely surprised at how funny Andy Samberg is every time I see him in anything, because it's I don't know about you guys, but I was introduced to Andy Samberg in Hot Rod. I don't know if you guys...
I'm aware of it, but don't believe I've ever seen it.
Oh, no. I've been an Andy Samberg fan since the Lazy Sunday music video.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I got in real early on that train.
That's something I haven't
Did you guys
seen.
see Popstar?
I actually haven't. I've seen
it's magnificent.
I've seen
Nobody
the
watched
Fuck
it.
Bin Laden music video from the movie, but I haven't seen the movie.
Wow, yeah, this is something
it's fantastic. Definitely recommend.
Yeah, I'll have to look for those for sure, because Hot Rod was an Evel Knievel stereotype, and it was just so funny. Some half the stupid shit. Danny McBride was actually really, really funny in this one too. I keep forgetting that he was in that one. Bill Hader was in there. I forget what the other guy's name was who played his brother, but yeah, if you haven't watched it, Dalton, you should really check it out.
Absolutely.
It's been a few years since I've seen that movie, but I remember it being pretty good.
It was pretty funny from what I remember too.
But yeah, Nine-Nine's great. I actually, I was kind of in the same boat as you. I stopped. I didn't watch the latest seasons, so I actually picked up from. I think I was at the start. I had watched the first 3 seasons, so I started watching season 4 again this week. Actually, I just didn't finish it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Did you start at the beginning, or where are you at?
Oh, yeah. I restarted from the beginning. I'm still on season 1 because my wife told me to check out Preacher, and I kind of got stuck on that because I knew it was going to be shorter than Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And I'm already.
I have a habit too of if I fall away from a show for a couple years,
Yeah.
then just screw it. I'll rewatch the whole thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I
well,
remember
there's
some
6
of the
seasons
big
out
plot
now, so that's
points.
a lot of content to get through. But it's all really
certainly.
good. And Terry Crews is a national treasure.
Oh man, I didn't realize how awesome he was until I watched the episode of Hot Ones with him in it.
I love that. Oh, if we could just talk about Hot Ones in general. Did you see the Gordon Ramsay episode that came out a couple of weeks ago?
Oh my god, did you see the newest one with Ken Jeong?
I haven't seen that one yet. I saw it came out. I
Oh,
love
man.
Ken Jeong. I need to catch up on it.
Oh dude, that one's funny
Actually,
as shit.
Alex and I talked pretty thoroughly about the Gordon Ramsay one this last weekend because I had some mixed opinions there. Because on one hand, like in general, I love Ramsay. He's funny. He's a cool dude, whatever. But on that particular episode, there were little bits here and there where like he's aware of his persona and he'll intentionally try to lean into it, and it doesn't work when he's doing it on purpose. So like when the host was showing him those pictures and it was like, what do you think of this new food trend? He had no insight on any of it. He just said, oh, it's fucking stupid to all of it with no actual, he just knew he was expected to be mad and swear about it. And that's all he did, and it was never funny during that bit.
Yeah.
But when it comes out naturally, like he's super hot from a chicken wing and he's reacting to it, then it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely some low points to the interview, but then there was also Gordon Ramsay chugging an entire cup full of Pepto-Bismol. So I think it kind of balances. Things kind of balance each other out, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, that stuff made it worth it. I got enough
absolutely,
humor
it did.
out of his 10 backup plans.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Huge fan of Hot Ones. I actually own a bottle of The Last Dab, so that's where I'm at in my life.
Yeah. Hey Josh, do me a favor.
Yeah.
Keep that the fuck away from me.
Yeah, I'm actually about
Well-
to order another one because it's almost out.
Well, this is a weird sentence that I hope I never have to say again, but Josh did not keep that away from my wife.
Yeah, she was telling me about that when we seen each other over the weekend, dude. And she was telling me
Yeah.
it was like a pain that you would never experience, and I'm like, I'm good. I don't need it.
That was not The Last Dab. That was, if I remember correctly,
Oh, no.
that was Zombie Apocalypse, and that was Kyla's sauce, not mine.
Oh shit.
Okay, well, how far into the show do they pull that one
That's
out?
usually level
how hot
9
are we
out of 10.
talking? Okay.
Yeah, I think
When
I
they
think
have
you're right
it.
about that. No, wait, because it's before Da Bomb.
Oh, okay, so it's normally level 8.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow. It's kind of sad that I'm remembering these hot sauces because I'm actually a fairly new watcher to the show, like the past 2 weeks, and
Since it started, I've been watching just the particular celebrities I'm interested in, but I've never made a habit of just waiting
Yeah.
for and watching each episode.
yeah, I've definitely gone and looked at the ones that have been the most viewed and have watched them and learned some pretty interesting things about other people.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites,
Made me feel bad for making fun of Guy Fieri
Oh, yeah, his
because he's
episode
actually a
was
really
great.
cool dude.
Yeah, Guy Fieri is awesome. I know I really appreciated the episode with Eric Andre, even though I've never watched his show ever. And
I don't think I've seen that one.
I'm not I don't know because I've never seen his show, so I couldn't tell you if I'm a fan or not of his comedy. But his comedy seems rather extreme.
Meaning odd, peculiar,
No,
unique.
as in fucked up.
Okay.
He's got an Adult Swim show, right?
I don't know. I can't remember if he mentioned where it was. You actually, I think you might be right. It might be Adult Swim, but his reactions to the wings was really funny, especially when it got towards the hotter end of them. But I guess it was a fairly common thing to be on Eric Andre's Instagram and just seeing naked photos of him randomly for the funny of it. So
all right, remind me
it's that kind of humor.
to not follow his Instagram.
Dude, do you even have an Instagram?
I'm lying. I don't have an Instagram. Do you
Exactly.
follow people on there? I don't even know.
No, you do. My Instagram, the reason that it came about was a sad and funny story at the same time.
Oh yeah, I've heard this. You can go if you can tell it in a minute or two. Then go ahead.
All right. Well, there's a small bit of backstory. Well, my mom passed away last year, We were moving the rest of my stuff out of her house because I was her caretaker, and it was just a rainy ass day. You know, we were super tired, and this dickhead comes up flying behind us on the road, pulls around us, and like almost like clips us trying to get back in the lane. And he's driving this stupid souped up car with all these brand logos and stuff on it. And I happened to notice an Instagram handle, and I was like, tell me this is not this dude. So I get
hashtag how am I driving?
Yeah, really. Hashtag bullshit. That's how. So I look up this Instagram thing on Google, and it was totally his because like there was 30 pictures of his car and like him like throwing like gang signs beside it and shit. And he was like some like just like I turned 18, I'm the boss kind of guy. So like that made the entire night just that much better out of all the grueling shit we had to deal with. And that's how I got my Instagram, so I could follow him and just comment like, yo, cool story, bro. Like don't skip leg day, bro. Like so that's how my Instagram
Are you still
around.
doing this? Are you still randomly commenting on this dude?
Every now and again when I see his posts.
Shit.
Oh,
Okay.
man.
So we have a few yet another geek show firsts on this episode. We've had the first time someone recommended something even though it was off air and another person watched it with the Fire Festival. We had the first time discussing a web series.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the first time just talking about shitting on some guy on social media for no reason.
You
Well, he
know,
had
the
a cool
Geek Show
car,
would
bro.
like to take the opportunity now to just make it perfectly clear that we don't condone cyberbullying.
Well, I'm not like posting like, hey, you're a piece of shit, die.
It's supportive trolling.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, don't skip leg day, bruh. Like I'm like, yeah, soup that mod up car thing. And he's
Hashtag positive trolling.
yeah.
Get it
Hashtag
out
Wholesome
there.
trolling. You know, that's a theme for 2019 I can get behind.
yeah. Wholesome trolling. Is there a subreddit for
Absolutely.
that? Because
I was going to
If
say, let
there's
me
not,
make
there
that
should
subreddit
be.
right now. Jeez.
Follow your dreams,
So,
reach for the stars, bro.
I think the last thing he did was he posted something about him being in Russia, and I was like, "Don't skip leg day, comrade!" Like, oh, dude.
I can absolutely get behind that. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled programming. So I watched one movie in the last week, which is probably all a result of the Switch, killing my desire to watch movies. I watched Velvet Buzzsaw. Has anyone seen this or the trailer for it? It's a Netflix movie.
As opposed to Scarlet Bandsaw.
Right.
Okay. No, I haven't. What's it about?
Which is also sounds like a communist thing. Anyway. Anyway, Netflix original starring my boy Jake Gyllenhaal. Directed by the director he worked with on Nightcrawler, who I now feel terrible that I did not look up this director's name. I need to start doing that in advance.
Get off
Note to
your Switch.
self, take notes. Anyway, don't know if you guys ever saw Nightcrawler, but it's one of my favorites. So was excited to see these guys work together again. Jake Gyllenhaal's like a top 3, maybe top 1 actor of all time for me. And in this movie, the idea is Jake Gyllenhaal plays like a really snooty like art critic snob, and so it's a character I haven't seen out of Jake Gyllenhaal. Just it's funny to have a picture in my head of the kinds of characters he plays and then see him doing this. And it's actually a horror movie, and it kind of slowly gets there. It's not obvious right away, but I think the title makes it pretty obvious anyway, so that's not really a spoiler, I don't think. And the idea is there's basically this art demon that starts hunting down people that become more involved in the money than the art at this art museum. And to be honest, I only half watched it because my wife handed me the Switch 10 minutes after I started the movie.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So that's unfortunate, but in my attempt to multitask, I came to the conclusion that, I mean, it's worth watching for Jake Gyllenhaal, but I don't think in my admittedly unclear observation that it holds up to Nightcrawler. It's not by any means a must watch. It's just fine. I don't have any complaints other than it's just hard to sell me on horror. I have a handful of horror films that I really, really love, and most of them are just meh, and I can't really strongly recommend them. But yes, still just worth it for Jake, really.
I feel that way about horror most of the time. The last horror movie I can remember watching that I was like absolutely in love with was A Quiet Place.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably my only one for last year. Not that I make a habit of watching many of them, knowing I don't really care for them.
Yeah, I don't get into like the slasher film genre, your Halloweens and Nightmare on Elm Streets and everything like that. It's just never really appealed to me.
It's just hard because I don't find this is going to sound very r/I am very badass, but I just don't find horror movies scary. So if the whole idea of your movie is to scare me,
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do better than that. You need something more. You need a really convincing, enthralling like tone and atmosphere. You need to work to get me to care about these characters. You can't just throw demons at the screen and say, hey, they can do everything they want because they're supernatural. Isn't that spooky? Are you spooked now?
Yeah. Yeah. I've never been a fan of horror movies, partly because growing up I was a complete and utter bitch, but it was also just because like once I got older and started being able to like handle them, you know, in my late teens, I don't know, I couldn't fall in love with like the unnecessary gore or like giant plot holes that I could see like without even getting through the entire movie.
Yeah, I feel that a lot. Have either of you guys seen Cabin in the Woods though?
Yes.
I haven't.
Okay.
Yes, it's been a while, but absolutely.
That's one of the ones that I do like.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, it's a satirical
Yeah, it's a
horror
meta
film.
film,
Yeah.
and that's probably why I like it. But
Yeah, it's definitely a clever deconstruction, and the people that made it are definitely bigger fans of the horror genre than I am. Actually, I say the people that made it. That's a Joss Whedon thing, isn't it?
that sounds right. Yes, produced by Joss Whedon.
Yeah, featuring our buddy Thor in one of... Man, people do not really see his movies, do they? Outside of Marvel. I feel like it's a trap of the Marvel universe that if you blew up because of those movies, people still just aren't really going to see you in other movies.
Yeah.
All but one Chris Evans film I've ever seen is from before he was Captain America. Anyway, just a weird trend I've noticed. I guess Chris Hemsworth has.
I remember first seeing Chris Evans in Not Another Teen Movie on
Oh,
Comedy
I was going to say,
Central.
please say not another teen movie.
Where he is decidedly the exact opposite of Captain America, and it's just hilarious.
It's one of those things you go back to it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you go back to it years later and you go, oh my God, that's him.
that's Captain America.
You don't recognize that when you watch Captain America. You go back to that movie after you know Captain America and go, oh shit, that was him.
Just knowing the
so
way
anyway,
his career has gone
that-
since that movie has made it that much funnier, like in retrospect.
Yeah, well, and it was always a comedy because it was that, and then he was the Human Torch, which I guess was supposed to be funny, and then he's in Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and-
right. He is. Shit.
And that's what I know him for
Yeah.
before Captain America.
Wow. I forgot he was in that.
Yeah.
Which leads me to one of
I
my
don't-
favorite horror movies, funny enough, because Mary Elizabeth Winstead in 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Oh, I've been meaning to watch that one. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
That's the one with John Goodman and
Yeah,
they're all
you-
in the bunker, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I love John Goodman.
that's on my short list of great horror.
This one may make you unlove him. Oh, man.
He is a legitimately scary man.
Yeah. Oh, my God, is he? Wow.
Actually, you just led me to a show I forgot to talk about.
Oh, wow. We're going like
The
full
Connors, because of John Goodman. The Connors. Actually, it's funny. I was watching. It's in its first season, and it ended maybe a month ago. And I was forgetting to talk about it because I honestly didn't realize the series was over. I was watching it every week as it popped up on Hulu.
Mhm.
And then one day I was like, why hasn't there been an episode in like 3 or 4 weeks? Why is this break so long? And then I looked it up and realized the season was over.
Worst feeling in the world.
Yeah. Do you guys... I don't know if you guys know what The Connors is at all. It's a spinoff of Roseanne without Roseanne in it because she's a shithead.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I get it now. Oh,
Yeah, don't know if either of you watched Roseanne growing up or if you watched that revival season last year. but I'm still keeping up with that, and I still genuinely enjoy it. And there was worry that the Connors would not be good without Roseanne herself in it, but it turns out she was the most obnoxious thing about the show, and they don't need her. And I hope the show lasts for a long time. Although, once Big Bang Theory ends after this current season, I'll probably never start another live audience laugh track show again.
Yeah.
That was a thing that, like, you know, in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I watched a lot of sitcoms with my mom, most sitcoms were done that way. We've mostly gotten away from that today, but at the time we accepted it, and I never questioned the logic in doing it, and I never questioned why it wasn't necessarily a great idea. And so I tolerate it in the Connors just because it feels right. It's basically still Roseanne that I've been watching my whole life. Big Bang Theory I've been watching for, you know, a decade plus now, and so I'm just kind of used to seeing it there, but I don't like it, and I'll probably never start another show that does that. Let's ramble about the Switch.
Oh,
Yes. Okay. I've been waiting for this.
Oh man, I accidentally already talked to Alex about this for like an hour last weekend because it was hard. It's been so long since I've owned a console.
Give us the short and sweet of it here, right?
I don't even know the short and the sweet of it because I had so much to talk about.
Folks, I suffer through it, so you don't have to.
Oh, geez. Where to start? I guess from when I was first born and given my first console. We'll start from there. No, anyway, I switched to PC gaming like 6 years ago just because it's strange. Growing up, I didn't realize that anybody relied on a PC as their primary gaming platform. I knew Counter-Strike was there, and The Sims, and World of Warcraft, and RuneScape, and outside of a handful of games that I just figured, I guess, you know, they just work best with a mouse, and that's why they're on computers. Outside of that, I didn't realize that was anyone's primary platform. But so being on YouTube and searching for people's, you know, $20,000 gaming room videos, I got exposure to all these custom PCs and heard people talking about their frame rates and resolutions and stuff, and saw all the games they were playing and their multi-monitor gaming. And I realized, oh shit, people actually do use these as their primary platforms, and most games do come out on computers. I didn't even know. So I built one just for those sweet graphics. And then honestly, for a year or two, I was also just abusing my ability to easily pirate games on the thing. And then finally one day looked at Steam and saw that a game I didn't actually end up liking. I think it's called Terraria.
Okay.
You guys probably know it. It's pretty popular.
I love Terraria. I've got a couple hundred hours on that game.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, not my thing at all, but I saw that it was on a sale for like $1 or $2. And I'm like, oh shit, are PC games actually this cheap? Like, I didn't even know. And then, so like I bought it, and then a couple weeks later, it screwed up my computer and had to reformat it and lost a bunch of saved games and everything. And I was like, screw it, I'm not going to steal any more games. And then it's true. I've bought all my PC games ever since. I've bought something like 800 of them, thanks Humble Bundle. And wow, I'm not really getting to the point here. I'll fast forward and say it became my primary platform just because at first it was just advantages like, you know, I liked being able to have these better visuals to push the resolution however I wanted it and change graphic settings and choose whether I wanted a controller or a mouse and keyboard. And maybe there was a little bit of just getting addicted to arguing about it because so many people are so misinformed about PC. So you end up tying it into your identity a little bit when you get into it, and then you see people like attacking it based on ignorant information. Like if they say, oh, I prefer consoles because I like to play on my couch comfortably with a controller. And then you're like, well, why can't you do that with a PC, you dumbass? Like,
Steam Link
do you
has
not
changed
know?
my life.
Yeah, it's like, just, anyway, there's a million examples like that of things people are just misinformed on, and it becomes part of your identity when you spend so much time being addicted to defending it on Reddit. Not like, I was never one of those people that like took the PC Master Race thing seriously and literally. I wasn't going to people's videos and being like, ha, you dumb console peasant, even though I said it sarcastically at the top of the show.
I'm pretty sure the whole glorious PC Master Race console peasant thing started off as a joke anyway. And eventually some people that were dense enough not to get the joke started taking it seriously, and it kind of spun off into that whole subculture. I'm like 99%
absolutely.
sure that whole thing was a goof at first.
Yeah. And then unfortunately to the people, because if you're not inside the PC gaming communities, you only see it brought up in the context of people that were seeking you out to be a dickhead about it. So if you're just hanging out in a general gaming forum, your exposure to people that say, oh, PC Master Race, you're being exposed to the people that meant it. And then you just think everyone playing on PC is that way. And then, me, like someone like me ends up getting even more defensive about it because now your community is constantly being attacked. Anyway, that said, all this arguing and all this thought about why I preferred PCs and whatnot, it eventually got beyond just the customizability and open nature of it and got a little bit into moral issues that I have to lighten up on a bit if I want to enjoy Nintendo, really. The idea of console exclusives is very problematic to me because to me, it's anti-consumer in the sense that what you're doing is basing your business plan around paying people money to play keep away with their games from other people. Meaning, like, it's upsetting when I own, a perfectly good Windows machine that, there's no reason it couldn't play any game from any platform if it were coded for it. It's upsetting to already have that machine and then have hardware manufacturers saying, oh, you have to buy our $400 box to play this game, though. Well, why can't my computer do that? Because your money arbitrarily said so. So I can ramble about that for a while. I don't know if anyone has any other insight that far into it.
No, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head with that, man.
It's kind of, I mean, Alex, when you got the Switch, it's been almost 2 years now, right?
Yeah.
You're showing me like all the cool nifty things that the Switch does, and like it truly is a wonderful piece of technology, but this whole time you're showing me all these interesting, fascinating things it does. I'm just thinking to myself, why couldn't someone like... Nintendo gets defended for doing more unique things. The PS4 and the Xbox One quite literally don't do anything that a PC can't do. But you look at Nintendo consoles and like someone might point out the Wiimotes. Oh, well, guess what? Those work perfectly fine on my PC. You might point out the DS consoles with their 2 screens. Okay, I've got 2 screens at my computer and they can be touchscreen too. Why can't it do that? And then you get to the Switch and all the neat things it does. And again, I'm like, there's no hardware reason, though, that a Windows machine couldn't do this. It's easier for me to justify the purchase of a Switch because of these unique features, but like on a moral level of why should I have to be buying these other machines and then getting myself locked into other ecosystems where my games don't transfer back and forth and everything, I'm still left with why can't this just be a Windows machine that does the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, your argument is still very sound, but the big thing is like, how do I want to put it? It's kind of foolproof in the regards of you don't need to learn 30 things to do one executable action. You got to agree with me on that, because I mean, there's been several times where I've gone to play a game like, I don't know, Resident Evil 7, and my computer crashed for some dumbass reason that gave me a specific code that I had to Google search for 20 minutes, figure out what I needed to do, then restart my my PC, go back into the game, change like 6 or 7 different settings, and then I could finally play it again after like messing with it for
and that's totally valid. And I've always had, there's a list of reasons from the consumer standpoint why you choose a console over PC, and that's certainly one of them, that you're just less likely to run into these issues that admittedly you've had really bad luck with.
Absolutely.
And I almost never do. But in any case, just general stability, not having to tinker around is a great reason for the consoles to exist, but it's not a great reason, again, from a consumer standpoint, for games to be held hostage on those platforms.
Oh, I completely agree. Exclusivity is bullshit.
But so here's the little loophole in my mind. that I'm probably going to upset a bunch of PC gamers being a little bit of an exclusive apologist here is that while it bothers me that less so with Nintendo, but while it bothers me that these held hostage games are the main draw of buying these machines, I have to recognize that, like, if I'm insisting that there should be a platform where every game exists, why does it have to be Windows? Meaning, like, if I really want to be all for openness and doing morally right by your customers and everything, really I should be fighting for it all being on Linux, right? But at the same time, I'm not going to argue with developers and tell them develop for Linux because nobody's on Linux. It doesn't make any sense financially for them to do that. And so losing this mindset that Windows is the end all be all platform that everything has to be on, I then have to look at, well, if Nintendo wants to be not just this hardware manufacturer, but this game developer and publisher, do they really have a moral obligation to develop for other platforms for Windows? If I'm not outright going to say that Windows is the end all be all, everything should be on it because I say so, acknowledging that most of the world is not keeping a desktop computer or laptop computer anymore. Everyone's on their phone. It's not the 2000s when everyone had a Windows machine.
Yeah.
Can I really, like, it's harder to argue at that point, right?
It kind of is. I mean, I think a lot of people just, unless you're really, really passionate about it, you go for the convenience. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, that's one of many factors. You go for price, you go for convenience, you go for game exclusives, you go for features.
Well, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, if it's convenient to have that phone and pay like an extra $6 for something on your phone that you can have literally anywhere in your pocket at all times versus unplugging a computer from like 6 different things and then traveling with it in your car to a buddy's house, you know what I mean? It's not even just about the price, because I mean, I've looked at it in a weird way, I think, because like if you buy a cheaper console that's going to be cheaper than a PC, you're going to have to expect to pay more for the products that are put on it. And honestly, I've always looked at it as like a pseudo convenience tax. Like you have to pay a little more for that because, well, they're not going to have the international waters of discounts and sales, because they're on an exclusive machine. Not that the games are exclusive, but like the storefront is exclusive to its audience, so they don't have to see those discounts or sales.
Well, so that leads me to another issue here. The Switch, I own it almost entirely for exclusives. I might never buy anything for it that's not an exclusive for several reasons. But looking at the eShop, I want to be all digital. That's what I'm used to now from being a PC gamer for so long. I don't have interest in buying used games that don't actually support the developers and then trading those back in when I'm done. I just want everything organized into as few places as possible. I guess that's another thing that lends to me lightening up on the PC thing is, my games are no longer just on Steam now. Now they're spread out across Origin and Uplay and Epic and
whatever.
That's a whole
so
I've already
discussion in itself.
Yeah. So I've already lost the mindset of conveniently having everything in one place, even if it is all on one piece of hardware, but now there's several different opportunities there for me to lose games to closing eShops and whatnot. Anyway, getting sidetracked there. Looking at the eShop for these Nintendo first-party games, why are they all $60 fucking dollars?
That's a very good question, and I wish I had the answer for that too, because none of us here do, I think.
Yeah, for better or worse, Nintendo, well, not really. You can't really make an argument for better. For worse, Nintendo has pretty much always had the MO of never discounting their games unless they release them again, like 5 years later under like a player's choice title or whatever, and then like, for instance, I think
and when you port it to your new platform,
they re-released Star Fox 64 3DS, like the 3DS cartridge, which came out in 2011. They released it last year as a player's choice title, and this was the first time you could get it for less than like $35. A game that came out in 1997 or whenever 64 came out. I'm gonna look that up now because if it was 97, I'm awesome.
And so now, like when they port, let's say, a Wii U title to the Switch, which
Fuck
there's
yeah,
a
I'm
ton
awesome.
of those.
April 27th, 97, baby. Yes! Why do I know that off the top
I've
of
never
my
played
head?
a Star Fox. We're going to have fun with that eventually.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so now when they're porting the Wii U games to the Switch, now they're considering those brand new games again
Yeah.
for a full $60. What year did Mario Brothers U come out?
I didn't
That
play
was a
one,
launch
so I
title
don't
for the
know.
Wii U.
Yeah, it was still recent enough, but not recent enough to still be $60.
It was a Wii U launch title.
Yeah.
So what year is that? Maybe 2012, 13?
Yeah, give or take.
Something
somewhere
like
around
that.
there, Yeah.
Something like that.
And so it came out a couple months ago on the Switch, and it is a $60 fucking game.
Well, yeah, there was a ton of controversy when they re-released Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze specifically, I remember, because it came out on the Wii U as a $40 title, and then they released it on the Switch as a $60
And it is
game.
now $60 on the Switch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wii U games were cheaper.
Yeah,
I got that game on my Wii U because I'm one of the 10 people that owned one. I got Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze for free through the Club Nintendo program. It was a download bonus they offered 1 year. It's a fantastic game, but it's like 4 or 5 years old, and you shouldn't have to pay $60 to play it. The addition of being able to play as Funky Kong is not worth $20.
Wow.
That being said, it's probably one. It is. Well, I don't know how you feel about Odyssey, so maybe it's a top 5 platformer of the decade for sure. It's a great game.
Yeah, man, I don't want to accidentally do all my Odyssey discussion now that I'm going to do when I'm properly done with it.
Yeah,
but
this one's
Odyssey,
we've been going a long time this episode already. I don't think we have time to get into Odyssey. I got a lot of things to say about that game myself.
Yeah, well, just from a price point thing, I'm loving it, and it totally has enough content to justify that and is a new game. But Mario Galaxy also has a shitload of content, probably not as much. And if they released that today for $60, a decade plus after release, I'll be pretty pissed about it.
Yeah, if Nintendo could keep up with the market of their physical copies of their games being brought down in price, then I would be a little more forgiving. But the big thing for me is...
So that's the thing. We're getting pissed off.
Yeah, like
we're getting ripped off we're being punished.
Yeah, like
for being digital consumers.
It makes sense that physical copies are $60 because you have the packaging, you have the shipping, you know what I mean? It makes sense.
You share a cut with the store.
Exactly. That makes total sense to have it at $60. But when you're buying a literal file, not even like a physical thing you can touch, it should not be $60.
If I recall correctly, the reason that digital games and physical games have the same price point is basically because physical retailers basically threw a shit fit and said, if you sell your games online for cheaper than we have to sell them, we're not going to stock your games.
Yeah, so for me, seeing prices from a PC gamer perspective, where these developers don't give a shit if their PC games show up in stores.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why PC has the reputation for cheaper games now. But at the very least, when you look at the PlayStation Store and look at, like, they put all their shit on sale and they do it at a reasonable time. They're actually trying really hard to compete with the prices on Steam.
Yeah.
And Nintendo is just not. And they're getting away with it because I just bought a Switch and bought 3 $60 games.
Now, I'm not going to lie, I love my Switch, and I
me too.
completely consider it worth the price of admission. There's just something to be said about being able to play video games in bed. And I can't, whatever you want to say about I could set up a PC to do that, and I could, but it sounds like a whole lot of fucking work that I don't want to do. So,
because I mean, right now, right this moment, the way I have my PC set up and working is it's sitting at my desk in one room, and then it's HDMI wired through the floor to another TV in case I want to use that. And then I have a Steam Link I can set up in another room to stream to wirelessly if I want that. And I can attach my phone. I can clip my phone to an Xbox controller and stream right to my phone if I want to do that. And so there's plenty of options there. But man, it's a really nice feeling to just be playing the Switch on the TV and then just pick the thing up and walk away from it and continue playing.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
absolutely.
Which is a thing that theoretically there's no reason they couldn't start building Windows machines that do the same thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But the thing is,
it
it's
would
not being
take
streamed.
It would take which matters and doesn't matter. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't leave my house with my streaming thing, but I'm also rarely gonna leave the house with my Switch.
Yeah, I mean, I
You
definitely
say
see
that,
the
If
but
I
I
did-
take mine with me everywhere.
I mean, I've been one to like take my laptop out to a party for the sake of Jackbox, and I want to do that on a TV, not the tiny Switch screen. So it's not even really easier for me to do the Switch because the dock has to come too. Me personally, I'm just probably. I might find out I'm wrong. I've only had the thing for a week. Right now, I have no motivation to leave the house with it. And when I'm streaming my PC games, with the exception of like a rhythm game, I really can't tell it's streamed. The technology works so damn good.
Yeah.
But I mean, Windows could. It would heavily rely on cooperation between Windows and NVIDIA and AMD, but they could totally get the drivers working to allow that capability of just picking a handheld PC machine up off a dock. Or even skip the drivers. There's just a dock that works as an HDMI cord, and okay, maybe you gotta close out your games before you pick it up off the dock, and it's a little bit less neat.
And hey, Dalton, just to give you a little more credibility here, I want you to answer this question for me.
Okay.
Why should we give a shit about what you have to say about PC versus console? What do you specialize in?
Well, I started thinking about my whole backstory in life growing up again. I work in IT,
Yeah,
so
you have your bachelor's,
there's that.
correct?
Hopefully that gives me a bit of credibility. I'm a programmer.
Yeah.
But also I like to consider myself a little unbiased because before I started with PC, I had, 20 plus years of strictly console gaming. I've had plenty of exposure to both. Yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm at right now. I mean, PC is still okay. Like I said, the Switch, I love the functionality. I love Nintendo's games. Josh, I went to look at Wargroove on the eShop, and then I thought, you know what? Let me double check and see if this is a Switch exclusive.
It's not.
And it is also on Steam. And I've struggled with it, and I haven't bought it yet, but I looked at it, and I'm like, I want to play this. I want to take up this suggestion, but I have to choose between, do I buy it on the Switch where I get this extra convenience and functionality, because it's not a game that benefits from, being able to play on my 4K screen or on my 144 hertz screen. Like, that doesn't matter. It's a game very well suited to a handheld. Or do I buy it on Steam just because I like rewarding developers for putting things on PC, but B, I can have more faith that I'm going to have that purchase for a long time. I'm buying these $60 games on the eShop, and so far the track record is I'm going to lose them.
Yeah, this is kind of a topical thing because if I'm not mistaken, just last week or a couple weeks before, the Nintendo Wii eShop has permanently gone offline.
Yeah.
And now anything that I've still got my old Wii from college sitting around somewhere, and I bought a whole bunch of Virtual Console titles off there. And if I ever delete one of them now, or if my Wii kicks the bucket, they're gone. I can't get them back.
Yeah, and there might be procedures for getting those moved to another Wii, although that might require home brewing, and it's just, there you go, right there. You've effectively lost your games. I think aren't they talking about shutting down the Wii U's pretty soon, too?
I wouldn't be surprised. Nintendo's
one of the
strategy has
DSs
very
just
clearly
lose their
been
store?
Take the 10 good games that people liked on the Wii U, port them over to the Switch, and then just forget that the Wii U ever existed.
Mm-hmm. Which is a sound strategy, I'll admit.
It really is. Having owned one just for Smash 4, I ended up actually really enjoying the gamepad while it was out, but now it's impossible to see it as anything other than a prototype for the Switch itself. And now that I have the Switch, which is very much version 2 Wii U gamepad, there's literally no reason to go back except for Twilight Princess HD, which I'm sure they will port to the Switch in 2 years.
And if they don't, I'll emulate it on my PC at 4K anyway.
And they're going to charge $60 for it, and I'm going to pay those $60 because I am a sucker.
Well, and I mean, that said, like, I'm planning to take the risk and homebrew my Switch, not so that I can steal any Switch games. I don't want to do that. I don't really like to do that. I like to support the developers and publishers when I have the option, but I do want to slap an emulator on that thing. I want to slap RetroArch on there and just do all my retro gaming on the thing.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if I had...
Circling back to your Wargroove comment from a few minutes ago, just to give you some weight in the Switch versus PC debate there. I mean, I ended up buying it on the Switch because I valued the portability, but the PC version of Wargroove is slated to get mod support, so that pretty much makes it, I think, the objectively smarter purchase. I don't know what that says about me that I didn't purchase it on Steam, but
yeah, and I mean, not everyone necessarily cares about mods, or like, I'm into modding, but on a particular handful of games.
Yeah, I valued the portability over that in this case, but what it probably is going to end up meaning is that I'm just going to buy the game twice. But I think the game is so good that it's worth buying twice, and I would love to support Chucklefish games as much as I can.
Well, and I keep opening the eShop and wondering if I'm going to buy Undertale again and buy Hollow Knight again, and...
Oh, speaking of Hollow Knight, did you guys see the Silk Song trailer? You should look that up. They released it over the weekend, I think. It's well, it's actually not an expansion. I think it's a standalone game, but it's the one where you play as Hornet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm aware of that much. Honestly, I haven't really played the first one yet. I've opened it and seen enough of it to know that it's something that suits itself well to portability. Basically anything that doesn't benefit from high resolutions and whatnot. Yeah, I guess most side scrollers really will be well suited to it.
I have found the Switch to be a really good indie game machine in general.
Yeah, and so there's plenty of indie games I keep looking at on the eShop and going, man, am I really going to double dip on these? Or even not just an indie game, but I keep looking at that Final Fantasy IX and wondering, I already bought it on Steam for like $20 some years ago and didn't get around to playing it. Do I want to pay for it again to play it on the Switch for the form factor?
Well,
and the answer is no, because if you homebrew the Switch, you can slap an app on there that will stream from your PC, and if you don't want to leave the house with that particular game, then screw it, just stream your Steam copy to it.
Well, whatever it's going to take to get you to play Final Fantasy IX, like shit, I will buy it for you if I have to. You just need to play the best Final Fantasy in the entire franchise.
All in all, I think the biggest thing is do whatever you would like. It doesn't matter what these dudes and myself have to say. It's if you want to spend $40 to buy a game twice, then do it. I know someone who won't be, but
I mean, I understand why you have to buy it twice. I mean, I wouldn't have to buy it twice if someone just made a Windows machine that did the same thing. But I guess I'm just expressing my concern over the storefronts, really, because my Steam games, sure, there's a chance Valve goes under and I lose these games, but I'm going to have them for as long as Valve exists. I am not going to have my Switch games for as long as Nintendo exists.
Either way, I mean, are we going to exist as long as Nintendo or Steam? Theoretically, no.
I mean, presumably,
like 500.
I guess my point is, let's say hypothetically they both last our entire lifetime. I'm gonna have my Steam games my entire life. my Switch games I'm going to have until maybe 2 consoles from now. And they could change their mind on this, but the track record will be none of my purchases are going to carry forward. Sony's been pretty decent about that. There's a bunch of games that you buy them digital once and then you have them on the PS3 and the Vita and the PS4, and we'll see if that still holds true when their next console comes out. But that hasn't been the case for Nintendo. So not only am I not going to have these games forever, but as they're putting out new, better machines and I'm buying games for the new, better machines, I'm going to have to keep my Switch out and available. Whereas, you know, a PC is compatible with the entire history of PC gaming. You know, you buy a game from the late 80s, early 90s. Okay, well, it opens in a copy of DOSBox and gets emulated, and you hardly even notice DOSBox is there, and it works perfectly fine. And I don't know, sometimes you have to check a little compatibility box for, you know, a Windows Vista or 7 game, and it fixes it. So maybe it takes a couple minutes to fix it, but every PC game that's ever existed still works on PC, and they will for the rest of my life.
Unless it's on a floppy disk.
Oh, goodness.
Because
Damn it.
wow, I'm not
I don't know. I think
All right.
I've said all I've had to say here.
Checkmate, atheists.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I think I've said all I've had to say about this whole issue here for now.
I guess the conclusion of my rambling is I'm happy I have the Switch. I love the device. I love Nintendo's games. I'm just never going to be happy with the condition of their storefront, and I'll be buying nothing but the exclusives on there, which feels dirty after years of complaining about exclusives, but they're great games and I want to support them continuing to be made. And that's that.
Closing note on, you commented on like Windows gaming machines a few times. And you guys remember when a few years back when Valve were trying to make those? You guys remember the Steam boxes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to those? That idea just kind of like crashed and burned. I don't even know if they ever released any.
They did, and they ran on Linux, and I think the idea was they were afraid that with Microsoft increasing their interest in PC gaming, they were afraid Microsoft might do something that hurt them, such as like change the operating system in some ridiculous way that, you know, gives Microsoft control over all the software and they could just say, fuck it, no more Steam. That might be a really exaggerated example. I don't know what else people had in mind, but they were afraid that in some way or another, Microsoft was going to get in their way. And so that was Valve basically communicating to Microsoft like, hey, we'll just move to Linux if you fuck with us. No big deal, which didn't turn out to be all that terrifying of a threat anyway. Linux has a long road ahead of it to become popular.
Yes, it does. All right, well, there we go.
But yeah, all right. Thanks, guys, for listening. Hopefully next week's will be on a bit less of a serious note. And we'll see you then.
Take care.